In part, the sit-in protests that eventually led to the ouster of Omar Hassan al-Bashir, remember him, the former president of Sudan, these sit-in protests were a direct response to a long-running economic crisis, which included sky-high inflation, fuel and foreign exchange shortages and soaring food prices. Citizens basically were backed into a corner. But some argue that long-running US sanctions on Sudan also contributed to the crisis.
For 20 years, the US had imposed trade sanctions on Sudan. Experts claim these sanctions kept the country's economy in stranglehold. Businesses are unable to operate dollar transactions and investors have shied away.
Babies die because of lack of medicine and equipment. The main cause of their death is the US sanction and the hegemony. If not for these sanctions on the Sudanese economy, I think Sudan would have risen up. It would have benefited from the multiple resources in oil, minerals, agriculture and industry. It is very important to point out that the American sanctions, unfair policies and hegemony crippled the Sudanese economy and limited development of the country.
The US has in currency and weapons the control over the primary principle. Therefore, they impose the conditions and press the other side. The former government would meet the request and the new list came out.
The United States planned and led the separation of the South. They wanted a newborn state in the South in its control to benefit from its resources and strategic role in the Horn of Africa. Sudan lost 70% of its resources. Oil sector took a hit, which led to a serious economic crisis in Khartoum.
Washington later lifted the trade sanctions on Sudan in October 2017, but the state sponsor of terrorism listing remained. It has warned it will continue to block access to funding until Sudan is off the terrorism list.
Until the moment, Sudan is unable to reintegrate with the international banking system. This measure has affected the citizens inside and outside Sudan. I do not think there is a clear reason and justified reason why Sudan is on the list for state sponsors for terrorism.
Washington announced in November last year it was beginning talks with Khartoum to remove the listing, but the process was delayed in January by the US government shutdown. Chambono, CGTN.